Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm WrathOfTheHydra. For anybody who's new here, hello, hi, welcome. I'm going to be doing my best Louis Rossmann impersonation when it comes to talking about what I want to talk about today. But first, before we talk about the meat of the subject, I want to share a little bit of a story with you. See, several years ago, there were a lot of changes made on YouTube. YouTube was making enough dumb changes on their platform that we got the first kindlings of talk of another platform, right? When people first started talking about the fact that, like, hey, things are not great here. Let's go make our own YouTube. Now, there wasn't really a lot of people actually doing anything, but there was a lot of complaining for a very long time. In fact, until this day, we still basically just have people complaining. That is not to say that there weren't people who tried. I ended up finding a small community of people online who actually wanted to do something. They had gotten some graphic design people together. They had a few people who were trying to learn and figure out how to make servers and what that would take to make the infrastructure of a new platform work. They even had their own website, their own host website and forum on said website to talk about the changes and talk about what a new YouTube should look like. And I remember being on that forum for the longest time, talking with people, discussing what could be new on this platform. There were several weeks that I spent on that website talking with other people, getting excited and riled up and saying, hey, let's do something. We don't know how to do it, but let's try. Let's figure it out. Let's put something together, and we're going to need some help. So let's go online. Let's go to Reddit and share this website, share this product, this platform, this new thing to people, and see if we can get anybody else to come in and help out with expertise. And I have learned two things from that experience. One is that no matter how bad a platform gets, no matter how ugly the internet decides to become, there will always be at least one person who's going to try to fight against it. People who are going to put their own money, their own time, their own resources, their own life into trying to make a better version of something that everybody else is dealing with. And two is that no one else gives a shit. No one cares. At least that's what I thought. That's how it felt. That's what we ended up running into when we would end up going online, going to different forums, going to different subreddits and sharing our project and being like, hey, like, we need people to help with this. We need people to help with that. And the only thing that we got were several downvotes and many comments talking about the fact that it was never going to get off the ground. Oh, those people aren't serious. They have no idea what they're doing, right? They don't even know the first thing about X, Y, and Z about server infrastructure, and they're never going to be able to this, and that about service structure. From people who clearly knew more than some of the people working on the project. Which sounds bad at first because the people working on the project should know what they're doing, except that person complaining clearly has the knowledge and information to potentially help the project. But instead of helping, they turned up their nose and they turned away, and they left a whole ton of us feeling completely empty and downtrodden. And as you can see, there is no next tube. There's no refined version of YouTube that is currently in competition, in battle with YouTube these days. It's YouTube. It died. That project died. It never happened. Starting something, creating something is difficult. It's very hard to do. It's very hard, especially large concepts like a new platform, a whole new program, especially with all of these monoliths currently monopolizing the system. It is absolutely daunting to get into some of these projects to start from the ground up. Trust me, I get it. To hop back onto topic, for anybody who has recently been reading the news, for anybody watching this in the future who is just not in the know, I will describe to you what happened recently. Unity decided to pull some shenanigans. Unity is a fairly free software for game development that a lot of indie developers use. And they decided to pull a couple of stunts. First of all, removing one of their licensing levels and making it so that you could only purchase Unity Pro, which is a couple $1,000s instead of something more reasonable for smaller creators. And secondly, they decided to turn some flaming arrows back in time and shoot it into the wallets of indie developers everywhere, where if you had more than 200,000 installations of your game, you would now get charged for every additional installation of that game onto people's new systems, which is just unreal. Unreal Engine, pew pew pew, jokes. For anybody who's been recently watching the news cycle, developers everywhere got extremely angry. Nobody wanted to put up with that nonsense. And so Unity said, okay, well, we'll change a couple of things. And developers said, I'm leaving. And so, of course, Unity just recently, like today, decided to say, oops. Unity realized they made a giant oopsie whoopsie and decided to rewindy their mistake, saying, we made a mistake and you should forgive us, pretty please. Like, they're never going to try anything ever again. I wanted to wait to make a video because I knew that Unity was going to backtrack their decisions, which they absolutely did. And everybody knew, like, if you put 2 and 2 together, Unity was going to die in like weeks. So in desperation, Unity has officially said, okay, everything's going back to how it was, how we should have done it. Very sorry, our apologies. Another reason I decided to make a video was that a ton of people made reactionary videos to Unity's decisions. And not that I had an issue being a part of that flood. In fact, having more voice power behind saying, no, this is wrong, 100% the right choice, and I'm glad that everybody did it. Great job to everybody who made videos about this. But I think it's also incredibly important to get the facts right. See, a lot of people decided that the first person they were going to point direct blame to was John Riccitiello, who was originally working at EA as a CEO. And of course, nobody likes EA and immediately pointed to him as being the problem. When in reality, when you actually look at the facts, John has actually been around for a little while during some of Unity's better days during 2014 and actually really helped pick up Unity and bring it to, I mean, not today's standard, but, you know, like back in 2020, which interestingly enough, 2020 is also when Unity went public and had a lot of people who bought into the company. Those people specifically are way more probably to blame when it comes to a lot of the horrible decisions that just got made. I think it's just really important to put that information out there. And while I don't think it's a great idea to sell your stocks right before the company is about to go under, John may or may not have done that. But it's really important to note that a CEO selling a whole bunch of his stocks right before this decision was made is completely recontextualized if you have that information behind it. It doesn't necessarily sound like this guy was like just full on cashing in on the money like crazy. It feels more like a guy who was surrounded by a bunch of idiots and went, this ship's gonna sink and I'm about to go broke. Once again, not condoning the selling of your stocks right before things are about to go under, but it does recontextualize. And while it can be made the argument that a CEO should be able to filter out these sort of decisions, that you should stop stupid before it happens. But once you go public, you never go back, or at least mostly. There are cases in which that happens. But when you go public, typically speaking, a lot of people who have no idea how to actually run your company end up making decisions for you. And that sounds like probably what happened here. Hello, hi, it's me from the editing portion of making this video. I also just want to stipulate, it sounds a little bit like I'm standing for Mr. Johnny Boy. I'm not. The memes about him making people pay $1 for every reload in Battlefield, the fact that he was probably the one who decided to go public, there's plenty the man has done. Not actually the point I'm trying to make. The point I'm trying to make is that the top end of this company is surrounded and swimming in idiots. It's not just him, and he might not actually be the ignition point of everything that's been going on. That's all. Anyway, back to the video. Whatever. So, Wrath of the Hydra, myself looking at the preview monitor on my camera. Why are you talking about this? Why do you care, me? I care for a lot of different reasons. I care because scenes like this are very tragic, and a lot of people end up getting hurt from situations like this. And I want to prevent it. I don't want this to keep happening. And this keeps happening. This is something that continually happens over and over and over again. We keep seeing this, right? Elon Musk taking Twitter over, right? Now it's X. No, it's not. It's Twitter still. But, you know, or places like Reddit that had the mass exodus after the third-party apps got shut down and the API got messed with because they're going public and they want to sell ads on their main app. Even got the tabletop RPGs into this with frickin' Wizards of the Coast trying to backtrack license things that people make under their stuff. That whole thing was weird too, which ended up getting backtracked because they realized they were about to absolutely burn in a fire as well. And now, similar to Unity, you got people like Critical Role making their own rule books and systems and whatnot, and people are starting to turn to other systems. And this all just sucks. I mean, it just keeps happening. And I want it to stop. And the only way it's going to stop is if people stop it. And that sounds stupid. It sounds dumb and simple, but it's so true. And one of the ways that you can get that to stop is by supporting the right people. Open source is such a beautiful platform to be a part of. I didn't even realize for the longest time that I supported open source. I just liked rooting for the underdog. But there's something about finding this little program with like 3 developers around it and saying, I'm gonna use your program and I'm gonna champion your program. I'm gonna tell every single other person on the planet that I know about your program and I'm using it and I freaking love it. And watching that program grow from this tiny little thing, this tiny little flower, into a giant blooming tree that's called Krita. Krita being an art program that is just absolutely exploded and completely like went way further than I ever imagined. Right? People are making like professional art on that thing. And it started like as this little budding, like you used to draw like a circle on that app and it would just randomly cut a line through the middle for no apparent reason. And I was like, this is the best. It wasn't absolutely not at the time. It was really hard to make art on that thing, but I believed in it and I supported it and I told everybody I knew about it. And that thing grew into something beautiful. Something that people don't even think about, even though it's right there in the title. OBS, Open Broadcast Software. It's right there in the name. I've been using that thing for years. Once again, right when it started, right when streaming was just like, ooh, just a little baby. Started off as this little program that allowed me to use my PC to stream instead of my PS4, and now it's used by millions of people. It's used by millions to record their screens or stream or make their stuff with camera. People use it in like church productions and using it for education purposes in school. I mean, it's used everywhere, and it's open source. It's free. It's there. You can just download it and use it. And it was such a small little program. When we had XSplit, remember that program? People still use it. Like, it's a legit program. But like so many people used to rag on OBS for the longest time, saying this thing isn't worth it. Just use XSplit. Just don't even bother. This thing sucks. And you know what people did? They said, no, we're going to use this guy and we're going to support this guy. And it became something way bigger than any of us could have imagined. I like to think that back in the day, that YouTube alternative, that competition, if we had gotten that like open source treatment, if people had just piled in and said, you know what, I don't know what the heck I'm doing, but let's learn it together. I'm going to break open a freaking textbook. We're going to figure out how to make servers work. We're going to pool our money together. Let's do this. If we had had that mindset before, who knows what the world could have looked like? Who knows what could have been different today? I don't, because it doesn't exist. Because you know why? Everyone stuck to YouTube, right? Twitter went insane and people stuck to Twitter. They're still there. They're still there. They're complaining about Twitter and they're still there. Reddit's mass exodus has made a couple of new communities. We have a small community on Tildes if you want to stop by. Otherwise, there's people on Lenny and whatnot. But the vast majority of the public has stayed on Reddit and are now complaining about the fact that Reddit has gone down in quality. And it's like, yeah, because you're there still. And don't think that I'm victim blaming here. I think that it is completely noble to stick on a platform and be the voice of reason for anybody else who's going to listen to congregate around you. I think that's really, really important. But when a company like Twitter decides to go X, which I think honestly should just be the term that we use now, for any company that goes AWOL and decides to eat its own customers, that's going X. Anyway, when a company gets to that point of toxicity, that long enough, being on the platform is just adding to the attention and the power that that platform has. But I can sit in my armchair and say all of this all I want. It's hard. I get it. I get the hundreds, the thousands of hours that you've poured into learning the little quirks when you go to do something in a program and then suddenly it takes you an extra 20 hours roundabout trip to fix this one little thing because somebody just forgot to mention it in the textbook, and that's fine, I guess. You'll just watch 8 tutorials to find that one little fix to your problem and then continue on your way. I get it. You're going to find it again in a new program, probably Godot or Unreal Engine, right? And it's going to drive you insane. And if you could just stay on your old platform, you'd be able to get the thing done. You'd be able to make your game. You'd be able to this, that. Financially, you might only be able to stick with this. And so you just need to, I freaking get it. I so understand when it comes to something that you've poured your time into and somebody real stupid takes it away. Partially. It's still there, but it's like any zombie movie where the thing's ambling about and everybody's shouting at you. It's not still your mom. It's not still your dad, but you see their face there. If things could just go back the way it was, it'd be comfortable. Please remember that a company of people, not a company, the corporation, a company of people is not represented by the name. It's represented by the people. It's represented by what they stand for. It's what they make. It's what they believe in. It's what they do. And when it comes to Unity and the amount of vast developers that have now ditched Unity, have said, I'm quitting my job, I'm leaving somewhere else, there is a wonderful opportunity to follow those people, to see where they go. I have my thoughts when it comes to Unreal Engine and Epic and things. I'm not going to put that here today, but I will simply say that if you want to follow that kernel of open source, the idea that money cannot hold us back, that we can work towards something and learn something together, there's always the Godot engine, the Godot engine, Godot engine, however you want to call it yourself. That's an open source program, and it's beautifully tooled to be decently friendly to newer people. Some people might complain and say no. I would say look back at Unity when it was brand new in like 2014, right? Or like whenever it started, it was a chunky mess. But Godot is also working on that. They're also working in that direction. And with more support, with more donations, with more attention brought to Godot, you're going to see more time and effort put into Godot. And you're going to see that thing grow. And I just want to say that if you want to point your anger, your energy anywhere, point it to the project like that. When you feed the underdog, it can become the top dog with enough time. And I would absolutely hate for a bunch of people to stagnate themselves and say, well, maybe things will change, when right now is the opportunity to say, you know what? Let's gun it in a different direction. Let's go. Let's point in this direction. I would just like to see that. Unity is currently saying, hey, we're going to put everything back to how it was. Everything is going to be great. It's going to be fine. It's going to be wonderful. All they're going to do is continually think up ways to make themselves not look like the public enemy. And while that sounds like the thing that you want it to be, the problem is the root cause. It's the foundation of how things are laid out, which is, for something open source, it wants to do the thing that it wants to do to be. When it comes to a company that has made a bad choice and they're currently rolling it back, They're going to do the thing that's going to seem the best to you for as long as they have to make sure you stay hooked. And then what? And I know this isn't like the happy-go-lucky times that we usually have on this channel. I'm sorry. But it's just something that I care about. It's like we've seen this over and over and over again where these companies do this stupid thing and everybody gets outraged about it. And then, cool, well, that was outrage. We'll just continue what we were doing. And it's like, okay, but you have the power. You have the ability to go do something else. You have the ability to check other things out. I understand sometimes you're in a situation where that's not financially possible. I understand people like Hollow Knight Silksong have a lot of thinking to do right now. I get that. But if there's even one person who's on the fence who ends up watching this and has some sort of epiphany and changes their mind, decides to go either try a different engine or decides to learn into a new engine, this video is worth it. So, guys, I'm Wrath of the Hydra. This has been a Unity rant, and you guys, I'll catch you on the flip side. Thanks for watching.